So I started quite far away from the gaming industry. I went to school to do car design. Some of the guys that came to see the portfolio, that we had at the end of our studies, one of the guys was Neil Romero. He's the guy who designed Slave One, for the Empire Strikes Back.
The best design. Yeah.
See, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I can hook you up with a bunch of people. I met like another couple of people, John Bell, from like Jurassic Park, Tippett, who worked on Star Wars, like guys that I would never imagine meeting, but like it was so cool talking to them, and they were like, yeah, this is really cool, you should look at that. Have you ever thought of games? I used to play Blizzard games at the time, I played Warcraft, and I was like, yeah, you know what, maybe I'll apply there. Went in, did an art test in front of everybody, you draw in front of everyone when you go there, and they gave me a job, which is pretty cool.
So what was your first project there then?
Starcraft. So that's pretty much the first part of my career. Shipping kind of like the last few months of Starcraft, which was kind of crazy seeing everybody run around. Mostly on Boudoir, I actually did I started drawing like some of the vehicles in there. Samuel Duran, who was the main bad guy. More than anything, what I started drawing then actually became part of what unfortunately became the defunct Ghost. Like I did the new dropship, but that was used in the new Starcraft. And even Nova, actually, I did the design at the time for. It was just fun making that game. I had a very small contribution to it compared to all these guys, but I think that's the fan in me that loves it. Everybody at Blizzard was contributing. Andrea and I met during the Boudoir days.
Well, we have to go back a long time, but we've been best friends now for about 15 years. We immediately hit it off. I'm Italian, he's from everywhere. Mostly Swiss, he grew up in Switzerland.
There was a commonality in a lot of ways, and we're on the same team also. He was also on the Warcraft 3 team. He did a lot of technology for the World of Warcraft team. We had a lot of common stories. We lived through a lot of similar things, although he's a little older than I am. Mm-hmm. I think there was a lot of that basically built the relationship we have and that we keep today.
Was he the strongest man in the universe back then too?
No.
That's new?
Oh, I'm going to tell you a secret. Yeah. Oh man. No, Andrea, when I first met Andrea, he was very different. He was smaller, much smaller, like small frame, not muscular, at all, anything like that.
I was about 100 pounds lighter, yes.
What happened?
I was always kind of miserable, physically. I spent most of my life in a dark room, hunched over a computer. I decided that, I had to change it, and since I am an engineer, I approach it in a very engineering kind of way. I started bodybuilding. This has been the greatest thing I've ever done for myself.
Andrea is the kind of guy, when he picks up something, he doesn't go halfway. He can put his head into something and just make it better than anything that you could have imagined sometimes.
So how connected was this change of lifestyle personally with the one professionally and branching out and forming a new company? Was that just a moment in your life where you wanted to change everything up?
It might very well be, yeah. I never thought of it that way, but it really was more or less at the same time. It was a year before. As soon as we finished Warcraft 3 in 2002. The year after that, the core Blizzard team, we were already working on Starcraft 2, actually. Funnily enough, I worked on Starcraft 2 for 1 year, and I've been gone from Blizzard since 2003. That's how long things go on at Blizzard.
I was a lifer at Blizzard. I always thought that I was going to be there forever. Blizzard was the kind of place where it's a family, and it still is. It's some of the closest people I have actually still today, and I care about that team. But there was always this kind of hunger to try and figure out whether we could have our own ideas about what a company could be.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the latest addition to the PlayStation family.
I really always loved console games. I was kind of tired of PC games, and Sony announced the PSP. The first thing I thought was, this is a fantastic opportunity for someone who thinks they have something to say in the world of consoles to do so without having to build immediately a 50-60 person team. Didier Malenfant, he was a programmer at Naughty Dog. He knew he wanted to start a company as well. He had done a good job at Naughty Dog. He had the blessing of the people there, including Jason Rubin, who was a big help for us at the beginning. Through a share friend, he came over and said, there's this guy who I think you would really get along with, and he's trying to start a company, and we started talking, and I liked what I heard. The first thing that popped to my mind, I said, okay, if I can get Rue, that's it. A lot of artists in our industry now are extremely specialized. Rue is one of those guys that can do absolutely anything. He just has an eye for creation, for story. He brings a unique perspective to anything that he decides to invest his time.
He asked me, and I was just like, okay, I got to think about it, and I didn't think about it that long. And I just said yes.
Wasn't that terrifying?
Yeah, it's good terrifying. You got to be terrified once in a way. Jason Rubin, knew that the PSP was going to come out, and I think that he was throwing out the idea that because Didier wanted to leave, like, hey, why don't you do something on PSP with one of our IPs? And of course, the IP was Jak and Daxter. And of course, doing a Jak and Daxter on PSP, what better thing to do than to give the sidekick his own game. So we started working on it, we started meeting in coffee shops, putting a design doc together, working late at night in our offices, coming up with cool stuff that we could think of at the time.
So we had expectations and we had a potential project. That's all we really had. We still had to pitch and do everything. Of course, it was a kind of an innocent pitch that we did to Sony for Daxter. And what I mean by that is that we went and saw Shu at Sony. All we had was a little pamphlet, about 6-7 pages, describing the game that we wanted to make, which was Daxter. A few pieces of artwork that Rue had drawn to show what the character in our vision of it, and that was it. That's all we had.
And the coolest part about it is that Shu was very quiet, as he always is. He's this kind of character that you learn to appreciate because he's such an amazing character in the, as far as like his approach to games. We talked to him, we looked at his reaction. They told us that we're gonna talk, they're gonna let us know in a few weeks or something. When we were walking out, Grady ran behind us and just said like, hey, you guys got the gig. And we're just like, really? And we're literally going down the elevator going like, this is kind of surreal. What do we do from here?
Do not think that happens. At the time, we didn't even realize just how incredibly rare and unique that was.
The name was actually not so much of a struggle. It was more of a, I can't be worried about this right now. We need to make a game. We couldn't come up with something we all agreed on. And at one point, we were just like, what about using the 3 initials? Rue, Andrea, and Didier. Didier basically said like, look, I'll think about something. And he threw out Ready at Dawn. And we're like, that's cool. Let's go with it.
Even from that initial outset, you were set on being independent?
Yeah, I think that it was important for us to make our own decisions in the beginning. We knew that we wanted to live and die by our own rules. Having that parachute and that support sometimes makes you less fearful. Fear is part of like what you need to know that you have something to lose. Having something to lose makes you do the right thing more often than not.
Daxter, it wasn't fun. It was just terrifying. It really was. It pays off to take a risk sometime, Well, sometimes it doesn't, but...
We started off in 2004, January, in a tiny little leasing office. In the beginning, designing for the PSP was, I want to say non-existent, because we didn't have a PSP, we didn't have an emulator, we didn't have anything. So we were just like, we're going to keep on tracking.
It was the hardest, the most brutal and most terrifying project that I've ever attempted. It was the kind of thing where, and I'm not exaggerating, we waking up in the middle of the night and cold sweat, for the 2 hours that we would get to sleep. And it was the most stressful and most difficult project we've ever done. From the get-go, we did our own technology across the board. I really believe that was both, one of the most difficult things that we had to do, but also was one of the biggest advantages that we had at the end. Even the few specs that we had at the very beginning that were completely off, it was supposed to be 8 megabytes of memory, onboard memory, but really, really fast on-chip memory. Instead, when the PSP came out, by the time actually the specs came out, it was 32, 24 usable, of very, very slow memory. Sony went a completely different way. Just that is a big, big deal. You're bleeding right at the edge of it all the time. You do one thing wrong and the whole thing just, either you load for 8 minutes or the frame rate goes to crap. You can't even move. I don't know if you remember what the early batch of PSP games looked like. I'll be honest, they were kind of crappy. Let's put it that way. And there was a reason why they were kind of crappy. It was really hard. And we said we're going to make a full-on platformer and make it run on the PSP. And there were times where we thought, okay, maybe it's not possible. When you got the thing running at 2 frames a second, you're 3 weeks away from E3, and you're just running out of ideas, and you're going, okay, now what,
And as we're working on it, we started realizing that the game was getting bigger than what it was. Within a year or less than that, the game got twice as big as what it was.
And was that too big?
And nothing's ever too big.
For me personally, I had this recurring nightmare where I had to go face the team and tell them, guys, we didn't do it. We failed. It's not going to happen. I just could not face that thought. It was just devastating. It was not something we were going to do.
Are you guys all excited about E3? All right, come on, there are more than 2,000 people in this room. Let's try that again. Are you guys excited about E3? All right, that's what I'd like to hear.
After E3 2005, things were different.
It was us going there to show Daxter for the first time to the world, panicking, really being panicked about how people were going to feel about this.
We literally thought we were going to go to E3 and be kicked out because we were like a fraud, you know. This is pathetic. What do you call this, a PSP game? Get out of here.
One day, actually, as we were standing there and we were manning the stations, somebody walked up. The guy who's manning the station just like goes white, like a ghost, scared. And we turned around to look, and it's Miyamoto playing Daxter. And he walked out and he just shook his head. He's like, walked out. And we were just like, that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing.
Just people loved the game, and we knew then that all we had to do was deliver on the content and finish it up, but what was there was good. At that point, finishing the game, doing what we wanted to do, was our measure of success. I couldn't care less if it was going to sell 1 copy or 1 million copies or 3 million copies. Just finishing it and having something on the shelf that we say, okay, you know, that's it. That's what we wanted to make, and it's actually, I think it's cool. I don't care what anybody else thinks. That was the measure of succeeding for us. Still today, whenever I see it, you know, I get a little like, you know, a little tear coming down. It's just very emotional. There's nothing else that has that same, I don't think anything will ever have, because it was our first game as a company, and you know, you only get one chance to do things like this. I mean, you might get other chance to do other things, but if you fail, you fail. We didn't intend, it worked out, and it will always occupy a very special place in my mind. It's never gonna go away.
Heroes always find a way to get it done, no matter what the hardship.
Are you still proud of the story in Daxter?
Yeah, I think I love the story in Daxter. I think that's something that was hard to do, to tie it into that whole, like, you know, sequence of what happened with Jack 1, Jack 2 and all that. It was giving, you know, somebody that deserved it in so many ways his own story. I still laugh when I read some of the stuff, you know, that was written back then. So when I see some of the scenes that we did back then, that is still the thing that's probably the dearest to our hearts, you know, because it's what made us. It was the first baby that we put out. We got something out of that thing that people didn't think was doable at the time. You need some kind of gratification from the things that you put out, and having players, press, you know, just like react to it the way they did, it was just amazing. Take a big breather after that.
And that was one of the pillars of the studios. You guys want to just specialize as the premier PSP developer?
Well, at the beginning, definitely. We always had a very ideal of Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog has always been our model, especially at the beginning. You know, we were, okay, we want to be the Naughty Dog of PSP to start, you know. Eventually we'll take over the world, but to start, you know, they seem like a really good goal. They're really close friends of ours, besides, you know, the fact that we admire them endlessly. Both the old guard, you know, Jason and Andy, and the new guard, Evan and Christoph. They're amazing friends. They're the best there are, in our opinion. They're still the guys that, you know, we aim to eventually, you know, beat, if possible. They keep raising the bar, so it makes it really hard. I kind of hate them a little bit because, I mean, we were playing Last of Us, and it's just, you know, they raise the bar every time, and they keep raising it and raising it, so it's difficult.
Naughty Dog was, I think this is one of the great things about Naughty Dog. It's the confidence they have, and I think that confidence made them be more hands-off. They knew that we had to make our mistakes, so they didn't push us at the beginning. They actually wanted to know what we're capable of. I think that's kind of almost a test on their side. But us making those mistakes was their way to test whether or not we were capable of hitting what we needed to.
Yo, I'd hit that!
As we were finishing Daxter, I think the automatic idea behind, you know, making the first Daxter was Daxter 2. There's always more to tell. But as we're finishing the game, we were in a mode where we were playing a lot of games that were coming out at the time. God of War 1 had just come out. We had all played it, and we were just like in awe of what they had done. We loved it so much that we decided, I know that this might be a little bit tricky to do this, but let's go to Santa Monica and tell them that we want to make a God of War game. Yeah, at the time, Shannon and David were the main points of contact. We went and pitched kind of like, you know, the idea of making that game. We sat down, we had our first kind of powwow, and we brought ideas to the table basically that first day. Their feeling walking in, and I still remember David, the first thing that he actually wanted to talk about was, yeah, great, we'll make a God of War game, so we'll make a 2D platformer side-scroller, you know. And it's kind of that reaction where you kind of step back and go like, oh, no, what we wanted was to make a God of War game on PSP, like a true God of War game. And in the beginning, it was kind of a question of like making them understand that the PSP is capable of it. The more we talked about it, they were like, you know, David just said, fine, if you guys think we can do it, let's do it. Let's do exactly that. Let's make a true God of War game on PSP. So, you know, the better part of the first year was understanding what a God of War game was. There are some ideas actually that came up. I mean, talking about like, you know, Norse gods and this and that. And it was like, it was cool. Actually, it makes you understand that he was thinking bigger than just the game. We didn't want to go there because there was not enough yet said about Kratos and making people understand who he was. Corey was telling us where the story was going, so we wanted to make sure that every part of what we were doing would have impacts on the story that was already there and the next one. We made a lot of mistakes. I mean, they also let us make a lot of mistakes for the same reasons, to learn. We thought that we could change things that normally, now we know we should have never even questioned.
What kind of stuff?
Just about Kratos, about the way he moves and all that stuff. There's a Bible behind how he is and who he is. And that Bible at the beginning, I think, wasn't communicated for a couple of reasons. I think the main reason also is that they were so busy with God of War 2. But by the time we had made the mistakes, we had understood, oh, don't do all of that stuff. So we spent the first year just making a lot of mistakes and scrambling to like basically make up for time. And we really did the full God of War game in the last 10 months. We really made that first Chains of Olympus.
No! I will not let the gods take her from me again!
Okami for the Wii happened over drinks at GDC. We were having a few beers and I met one of the VPs at Capcom. And I just was telling him about Okami and how the day I walked into E3 and I saw Okami that day, it just made me feel good about being an artist. And that's kind of like the genesis of the whole thing. I think the one thing that I learned is that you can actually sign a project over beers. That's a really good way of doing it. But on the project itself, I mean, it was something that we did with a small skeleton crew. All we wanted to do was do them proud and bring this to the Wii, which it almost felt like they made this game for the Wii. Yeah. So honestly, for us, it was just staying in the shadows and making Clover Studio proud of the game that would come out of the Wii.
And I'm sure you've talked about this 1,000 times, but I feel like I have to bring it up. The box art for that game.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Don't tell. Oh my God. You really have to go there. But no, I mean, honestly, like it was a shock, like even to us. I was just like, what is that? It didn't seem like a decision that was like a big decision taken by a lot of people. It almost felt like somebody somewhere decided to do something and we were just like, huh? I don't think anybody agreed to this.
Wait, you make it seem like it was intentional, but wasn't it an accident?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought I don't know what it was because we never got to the bottom of it. I just saw it and I was just like, I don't want to know. I mean, yeah.
Like, all right.
You know, honestly, like I didn't pursue it any further. I was just like, we're done with that game. I don't really know if we want to ask, and that was that.
Well, there aren't too many jobs or too many companies where just about every employee calls it their dream job. But Ready at Dawn Studios in Irvine seems like the exception.
I think you can't make something fun without having fun, and it's really what it comes down to. Is the people here, you know, don't really consider this as a job. I mean, even me personally, I've always said that this is what I do until I get a real job.
First time I rode a razor.
We were about 30 odd people, 30, 35 people. Chains of Olympus really gave us the chance to have a lot of people basically prove themselves and step up. I hired a guy actually out of Blizzard after he quit from the World of Warcraft team. I hired him as an environment artist on Daxter first. And then he basically became like the lead level guy for Chains of Olympus. Then Dana, who's now our game director, is the guy who basically stepped up and became the director of Ghost of Sparta.
So do you think your God of War games, especially the second one, pushed the PSP to its limits?
Oh yeah, well, the second one definitely. Well, there is never really a limit, you know. Technically speaking, you can always keep going, but the returns become very diminishing at that point. The second game especially, we really were doing things that it should not be legal to do on a piece of hardware. It was really crazy stuff.
I still love the franchise, but the franchise direction actually is so set right now that I don't necessarily know that I would want to go back into it, but I can definitely see where it could go. I'm still a fan. I still want to see more. I just want to make sure that wherever it goes, I think that they need to hold true to what it was before and not lose their way. And a lot of IPs have a tendency to do that. I hope that they don't. Didier left in 2010, I want to say. I mean, we were at a point where our thought process and where we wanted to go was, you know, different.
I couldn't see you come. Oh no, you bastards! Well, I will get you your wedding.
I think he was in a place also where he was trying to move away from the game industry. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of this moment where we all talked and we said like, look, what do you want to do? What do we want to do? And we figured out a way to basically, you know, split amicably.
Well, you know, we always want to do new things. We feel like we had paid our dues and we have very big ambition for our own IP. From when we started, our goal was always to take it slow, build a team with the right people. All that a game development studio has is the team. You know, that is the beginning and the end. Everything else is just assets and things, but the team is where the investment really is. And it's really hard. It's really difficult to find the right people and build the right team and get everybody to the right level of seniority. You have to have the right leads, the right directors, people that can, move forward and really scale up with the projects. So we felt that after, the 2 God of War games and the PS3 version of them and everything we've done over the last, 8 years or so by the time we started the order, we felt we were ready. You can do a lot worse in life than making God of War games, but it felt that we had graduated to, to doing our own thing. It was time, so.
Thank you. We are proud to have Ready at Dawn developing an exclusive title for PS4. As you know, they developed 3 of the highest quality PSP titles with us and have grown into one of the world's most respected studios.
The old office, much like other things, we inherited. It was an existing office that had been already set up for game developers, a company called Swinging Ape that was acquired by Blizzard. It was cool, and it worked well for a company of 40 people. For a company of 100 people, it just would not work at all. And here we got to build it all from scratch, and it redesigned the whole freaking thing, of course, as it does. The team feels like this is their home. It's different. It's like wearing somebody else's shoes when you're bowling. It's not yours. This one is ours.
You want to talk about the growth of the studio because of developing on the PS4? What does that been like?
It's scary. Growing the studio is great. Yeah, we have a bigger team, but it's so scary when you think about the fact that there are more people. Therefore, with more people, there is more diversity. With more diversity, more ideas, more opinions, and you have to manage all that, and you have to keep people excited.
The fundamental culture of the company comes from the top, and Ru kind of likes me, I think, after all this time, but there's always been a sort of synchronicity.
Ta-da!
The trash.
No, the complete series. Friends.
You gonna make fun of me because of Friends? We have this thing, I don't know if I can say no bullshit. It's actually part of our company policy, no politics, no bullshit. Anybody who engages otherwise, is not gonna be compatible with the rest of the team and will not be part of the team.
Are you scared of losing some of that early office culture that you had in the early days of Daxter? is that just completely gone, or do you feel like there's some cores that still remain today?
Yeah, we've talked about that internally. We talked to the directors about how we keep that alive, and surprisingly, it stays alive because it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. Everybody who comes in adds a little bit to it, but everybody who comes in takes a lot from our culture.
I think it hasn't changed that much, actually. Of course, there are all those stepping stones when you're growing as a company. When you're 5 people, it's very, very different than even just when you're 15 people. The dynamics just all change. When you go to 30, oh my goodness, and then 50 and 100 is yet another thing. You have to have many more layers. There is so much more management, and you find yourself going, who is this person? We don't want to get too big. We don't measure our success by the number of people that we have. We measure our success by, how happy the people here are, how much people love our games. That's it. And I really believe that past a certain threshold, it just becomes impossible to do quality. Personally, I have no desire of being beyond, this side.
There was a joke going around the team that, actually I said that when we were like about 10 people or 20 people. I said, if we hit 64, I'm going to be out of here. This was a long time ago. And then we're getting closer to it, and I'm thinking we still haven't achieved everything we want to achieve. I'm being a hypocrite, and I'm not going to hold to that. So anyways, that 64 went by. We're close to 100 right now. We're going to get bigger. I don't know how much bigger, but I don't want it to get too big. I think that there is a certain camaraderie that we want to keep here. We're a one game at a time studio. That's what I hope will always be. It's a hard thing to do in this industry, especially being independent.
Making games now is, particularly this kind of games, it is a very, very, very expensive, very critical business, and you have to be careful, that's all. You have to plan better. Whoever plans better and is able to devote the most resources to content creation is going to end up with a better product at the end.
PS4 has been fun. I have to tell you, it's been an awesome ride purely because I think there's been so much camaraderie between teams.
Have you shown Evan and Christoph your engine? Have you shown them demos of the Order recently?
I don't know how recently, but they've seen stuff, yeah. I hope they're, they seem to be, big supporters of ours And I hope they'll stay that way, obviously. Whatever they say means a lot to us.
Is there a lot of communication between the developers on the PS4? You guys
That is amazing. Yeah, that has been the biggest change. I mean, I've seen 4 major Sony platforms being released over the last 10 years from the inside. And the Vita already was night and day. It was unprecedented in the history of Sony, just how much better everything went compared to the previous one. But PS4 was yet another level. We have to credit Mark Cerny for doing such an incredible job with the development of the platform, but across the board, inside of Sony, there's been a complete shift in attitude. This one it's night and day. It's a whole brave new world, and I hope it really stays that way. A big part of the reason why I feel Sony is leading this upcoming generation already is because of the developer support and feedback that they've gotten, and has made their platform that much better.
So you guys have worked really well with Sony. I can't imagine Sony hasn't brought up the idea of purchasing the studio at some point. Why not just become a Sony studio?
Well, that's really not, not something that I can discuss. We're an independent company. We've been an independent company for the last 10 years. Never say never or anything of the sort, but it's not, type of commercial things. It's not something I can comment on.
Are there benefits to being an independent company?
Well, of course, freedom. I think Mel Gibson had something to say about that in Braveheart. He has been working well for us so far, and we've had interest from people and so forth, but we always felt that it was very important for us to keep our identity and take the studio where it needs to be before we can even contemplate, being part of an even larger machine.
We love our independence. We thrive in it. We thrive in the fact that we are a little bit rogue once in a way, but that's who we are. That's what we've always been. That's an image of every single person that's part of this team. I don't want to lose that, and I think that the moment that we see that we're starting to lose that, we'll probably try to rein it in.
There's always stress, but it's different. This is just a lot of work, and there's always excitement and anticipation, but it's kind of good excitement. It's not sheer terror. I would say, I'll be honest again, it's more fun now. It's much more fun. It's always scary, always engaging, always difficult, but this is fun.
But the goal long term is really we want to see our ideas through. We want to do one game at a time. We want to give it everything we have, and we want to be proud of what comes out in the end and not make excuses for those things. We just want to know that it's going to go out the way we intended and that we're going to be proud.
Perfect.
Cool.
That wraps it up.